Okay, so we'll get going with our press conference this afternoon. First and foremost, I want to say welcome to the Pine Creek First Nation band members who are joining us through Facebook Live. And of course, I want to say also thank you to the media who have joined us this afternoon for this important discussion. Chief and Council greatly appreciate, of course, all of your attention to this matter. Before we get going, I want to acknowledge Elder Dennis Pagman for opening us up this morning with a prayer and starting us off in a good way before we started today's event. Of course, I want to acknowledge our hero behind the camera, Justin Richard, for doing all the technology work this morning and allowing us to bring this important message as far as we can get it. And I want to acknowledge the Treaty 2 Governance Center for the hospitality this morning, for allowing us to host our press conference in this beautiful facility here in Dauphin. By way of introduction, my name is Jeremy McKay. I am a policy analyst for Pine Creek First Nation, and I'll be serving in the capacity of a chair for this press conference. And later on, I'll be available to answer any technical questions that the media or others may have. To my immediate left is Councillor Harley Chartrand, followed by Councillor Cindy McKay. In the middle is Chief Derek Nepenak and Councillor Angela McKay. And then finally at the very end is Councillor Dawn Chartrand. Today, there will be three primary speakers, those being myself and Chief Derek Nepenak and also Councillor Angela McKay. And after those three speakers have had a chance to provide their comments, we're going to follow it with a question and answer period where we'll ask the media to ask or to unmute themselves and to ask their questions. And we'll be calling upon you in order to try and facilitate that. Media, I just want to alert you to a 4-page fact sheet that we had circulated just a few minutes ago. That provides a bit of a written background of the discussion that we're going to have today. If for whatever reason you weren't able to access the document or you didn't receive it, feel free to reach out to me shortly after this press conference and I can get that 4-page written background to you. So with that, that's the end of my introductions. I'm going to ask Councillor Angela McKay to provide a background of our discussion today. Miigwech.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. At first, I'd like to acknowledge our elders that joined us today, Darlene Meekish and Dennis Pagman. Thank you guys for coming out with us. Also, the Treaty 2 for also letting us host this event here. But I'm going to give you a little bit background about the press conference. The Duck Mountain Provincial Park is a home to a traditional use and medicine, as well as a variety of wildlife, including the black bear, the moose, the elk, white-tailed deer, lynx, coyotes, and wolves. The members of Pine Creek First Nation ancestors lived, used, and protected the lands and water of our ancestral territory since the immemorial. Moreover, they continued to occupy these territories, which included the Duck Mountain Provincial Park. The Chief and Council of Pine Creek First Nation firmly assessed that the members of Pine Creek First Nation are entitled to huntable surplus in the wildlife species significant to meet the food needs of Pine Creek First Nation members. Louisiana Pacific is a major logging company headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee, and operates 25 forest product manufacturer plants across USA, Canada, Chile, and Brazil. LP's siding products consist of engineered wood siding, trim, soffit, fascia. Those products are used for new home in constructions, repairing, remodeling projects, and outdoor structures such as sheds. The wood fiber and the primary raw material used in LP's operations is a primary source of wood, fiber, and timber. The supply of timber requires the availability of timberlands and access to the wood's fiber. The Duck Mountain is a significant source of timberland and wood fiber for the operation of LP. The Chief and Council of Pine Creek First Nation maintain the forest land in Duck Mountain from the LP that obtains wood fiber and subject constitutionally protected treaty Aboriginal and heritage rights of Pine Creek First Nation. The speed of the LP destroys wildlife habitats, swift and shocking. The operations of the LP represents head-on collision between maximizing economic return of the wildlife within the Duck Mountain for the well-being of Pine Creek First Nation members. This is a top priority for this Chief and Council. In fact, within 10 days of June 2021 elections, Chief and Council had initiated discussions with the provincial minister and on those important matters. Chief and Council are here today to announce a firm legal action in the courts towards LP's negative impacts on the interests and rights of Pine Creek First Nation members. At this time, I'd like to ask Jeremy McKay to outline the details of the legal actions.
Thank you, Councillor. For the media that are joining us on Teams, I understand for the first minute or so we may have been muted, but you didn't miss a lot. I was just introducing myself and the table that we have here, and I also alerted the media to the fact that we've circulated a 4-page written quick fact sheet. So if you haven't received that, please reach out to me shortly after this conference. So this morning, our lawyers in Winnipeg, on behalf of Pine Creek First Nation, filed in the Court of Queen's Bench a notice of application for judicial review. The named respondents in that application are firstly the Government of Manitoba and secondly, Louisiana Pacific. The issue from Pine Creek's perspective is that Manitoba did not consult with Pine Creek before authorizing Louisiana Pacific to continue logging in the Duck Mountain Park, forest, and surrounding areas. Pine Creek is therefore asking the Court of Queen's Bench to halt Louisiana Pacific's operations until Pine Creek has been provided with an adequate opportunity to be consulted. So before I open it up to the media for questions, I'm going to ask Chief Nepinak to discuss the importance to Pine Creek of these matters and to the larger region. Chief?
Bonjour, Anishinaabe. Jigonuichiwaganak Nibin Makwa, Indigenous Cosmoquan Totem. I was chief of the Pine Creek First Nation, Minagozibi Anishinaabe, formerly known as Pine Creek. I want to acknowledge our elders who opened up this press conference and this discussion today with a prayer. I want to acknowledge our families back home who are tuning in and abroad to this discussion. This moment represents a watershed moment in our pushback to industry and to governments that don't listen to us as Anishinaabe people. I want to acknowledge the work of the elders from the last generation who were party to the discussions when Louisiana Pacific arrived in our territory and have put their dedicated lives and effort towards trying to create balance and harmony within that relationship. We know how difficult the tasks were at the time, and we know how difficult the tasks are today to establish respect. And I would say respect and honor in the treaty as we now turn the page towards reestablishing recognition and a reconciliation approach when it comes to resource management in our traditional territory. The Minagozibi Anishinaabe people, also known as Pine Creek, have occupied the lands and waters on and around the Duck Mountain since time immemorial. The Duck Mountain geography has been our resource area from everything from fresh meat to medicine to building materials, ceremony spaces throughout that time. The land-based relationship between the Anishinaabe and Manitoba is based in treaty. The Duck Mountains are influenced by terms of Treaty 2 and 4, which were negotiated decades before the province of Manitoba expanded beyond its initial boundaries, and decades before there was ever any talk of a provincial park within our traditional territory. Because of treaty, our relationship is with the Crown. It is not with settler colonial politicians who advance their interests, purporting to hold authority and jurisdiction, while also pushing forward their economic interests within our territory. This, to me and to our council, is a clear conflict of interest. And the only way past a conflict of interest is to be accountable and transparent in the processes that arrive at agreements that are made today in our territory. For an entire generation, Louisiana Pacific has pulled the wealth and reaped the benefits of the fiber feeding their system within our traditional territory. During that time, we have seen a steady decline in the population of moose as the moose have moved on into other geographies. That has impacted our ability to provide a stable food source to the tables and the kitchens of our homes in our community. And it has impacted the overall health and well-being of our people as we face an epidemic of diabetes in our community. Chronic illness and diabetes is leading to shorter lifespans. It's leading towards increased reliance on healthcare services that are just not expansive enough to accommodate the type of environment that we've created through our extreme resource extraction in the Duck Mountains. Just like everybody else, the Minigozzi Anishinaabe people are trying to navigate our way into an uncertain future during uncertain times. We cannot sit back and rely on standards of consultation that were created in the 1990s. We need to drag the province of Manitoba kicking and screaming into the 21st century if we need to establish a new relationship based on reconciliation, based on accountability to one another. And it's going to start here. There's no more freebies in the Duck Mountains for LP. There's going to have to be processes in place that respect our involvement. There's going to have to be processes in place that allow us to do our own science on the mountain. There's going to have to be processes in place that ensures that we're involved in the management of the herd, of the moose. There's going to have to be processes in place to recognize the ceremonies and the traditional medicine picking activities that we once had on that mountain. There's been a correlation between the lowered numbers of moose on the mountain and the rise in diabetes in our communities. We are people that rely on the fish and we rely on the moose. And in the last generation, we've struggled mightily to maintain those connections, to ensure our cultural continuity. We as Anishinaabe people are in a place now of reclamation. We are reclaiming our space. And by reclaiming our space, we're reclaiming our language. Anishinaabe is coming back strong in our community today. We're reclaiming spaces that we've vacated for a very long time, going back onto the land, teaching the young ones in efforts of cultural continuity and land-based education, so that our young people can know that their parents and their grandparents were the great harvesters of the mountains and the lands around our reserve. These are things we have to do. We owe it to our young people. This is how we ground them in an identity, an Anishinaabe identity. This is how we ground them in an opportunity to know who they are and to grow into lives that they can be proud of as Anishinaabe people. This initiative is not about taking food from the mouths of the families and the communities surrounding the Duck Mountain. This initiative is about restoring respect, building a new relationship for the next generation, a relationship with settler communities and settler governments that maybe our children can be proud of. Because right now we're all struggling. We're all struggling with the conditions that have been created by our extreme resource extraction in the territory. We're struggling by the lack of consultation and the commitment of consultation by the province of Manitoba. It's no longer time for words. It's no longer time for symbolism, land acknowledgements, any pageantry. All that stuff is out the window now. Now is the time for real action, to step forward and to figure out ways of rebuilding this relationship, because we're all in this together. We all live in the same neighborhood, and we all have to work towards reconciliation and respect on the Duck Mountain. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief. So now is the portion of our press conference, hopefully, that we're going to be able to hear questions from the media and we'll be able to respond to them. I have a list of about 5 media organizations that I'm going to start with: CTV News, secondly, Star and Times, Global News, CJOB, Canadian Press, and Post Media. So I'm going to ask in that order if you have any questions, and we'll limit, just because of the time, we'll limit the questions to one question and then one follow-up. And of course, if for whatever reason we don't get all of your questions in at this press conference, we can follow up by email or by telephone. So I'm going to go over to CTV News Winnipeg, either Karen, Bobby, or Danton. Do you have any questions for for the panelists?
Yeah, hi there. So I just wanted to hear here, maybe is not against the logging operations that LP is doing, but it is against the fact that their license was extended without consultation.
I think it's fair to say that the Minnegozi Anishinaabe people as a community, we have a lot of foresters in our community. We have families that have made a living and a livelihood on logging. What we believe in is sustainable forestry management. We can't say for certain whether that's been happening on Duck Mountain because we haven't been party to the conversation. LP has never come forward and shared the detailed information about what type of sustainable forestry initiatives they've put in place from year to year, never mind over the last 25 years. So, we are aware and we're stewards in a time of climate change and adaptation. We need to be part of that discussion. We currently aren't. And if the province isn't forcing, industry to meet these standards in dealing with Indigenous people, then how are we going to ever know whether they're doing it properly or not?
All right, as a follow-up, have you heard from the province yet in regards to this specific concern about the extension of LP's license?
We have raised concern many times in previous years, recognizing the province has an established pattern of handing out licenses without consultation. But to be more specific to your question, maybe Jeremy has a more specific answer on this extension.
Yeah, thanks for the question. We actually did raise this issue with the province even before they had issued the extension. So to answer your question, yes. Okay, so and again, Danton, if you have any follow-up, just reach out to me after this press conference. But we'll go over now to the Star and Times. Jennifer Laviolette.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chief Council. My only question right now is, have you guys had any dealings or meetings at all with Louisiana Pacific on your issues and your concerns surrounding their activities?
Over the years, there's been attempts made to talk directly with Louisiana Pacific from the political tables and the leadership table of Chief and Council. Most recently, we spoke with the Vice President, I believe, of the operations in this territory. He's based out of Nashville, and we spoke with him for about an hour. And there's always nice conversations that can be had, but we're past nice conversations because they don't turn into tangible results that lead to a better quality of life or better relationships overall for our community. But we have had discussions with them historically and ongoing.
Okay, and my follow-up question to that is, if there was room for negotiation with LP, what would Pine Creek First Nation be looking for in terms of being part of the consultation process? What is it that you want to see changed or considered before logging activities continue?
There's a very long list of issues and concerns that we have raised going back to the very early operations of LP, ranging from the science the science of deforestation. What is the impact on moose habitat? What is the impact on water quality? Because we do live in the watershed. What are the economic interests that can be addressed through negotiation? We have approximately 100 families, equating to about 500 people who are without homes in the community, but meanwhile, the best fiber from the mountains being shipped into markets abroad. How does that dynamic exist in this scenario when LP is able to draw down $2 billion of annual sales, but meanwhile we can't even house our own community members? There's something really wrong there, and that the tangible outcomes can only be measured based on identifying the issues clearly through consultation, and we hope that that's one of the results of this process that we've initiated.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and now I'll go over to Global News.
You spoke a little bit about this already, but can you tell us what it feels like to see these moose populations decline and what the loss of access to land might produce for commercial purposes?
Well, over the you're gonna hear I guess, counter arguments or criticism to our perspective on this, but we've been accessing that mountain for hundreds and hundreds of years. And over those hundreds of years, we have been successfully maintaining and managing the moose population by being respectful and by being the type of people that only take what we need from that mountain. And that's how we were able to enjoy that relationship for so long. It's only been in the last, I would say, 20 years or so since, coincidentally, the arrival of LP, where new roads are being put in, clear cuts have come into existence on the mountain, and then the moose have decided to either leave the territory or otherwise. We have noticed it as traditional land users. There's less moose that were harvested from the mountain. The province of Manitoba recognized it as well, even in their science, that the population was declining. So they put in place a moratorium to their citizens in Manitoba for a moose closure. We followed that in our community by having discussions and putting in our own customary law regarding moose harvesting on the mountain, and we have actually, stopped accessing the mountain for a long time as well. In recent years, we began going there once again, seeing a newer, younger, healthy population of moose once again is reestablishing themselves. But we need to arrive at a science that agrees, or at least that kind of correlates to what the province has been historically saying, is that the population is down, and how do we rebuild it? That's all part of the consultation that we want to be part of.
Thank you. I don't have a follow-up right now.
Thanks, Rosanna. What about CJOB, Richard Cloutier? Okay, hearing nothing from Richard, and we'll circle back, Richard, at the end, but we'll go over to the Canadian Press. Is it Kelly Malone?
Hi, no, it's pretty complicated. Just wondering what, if any, you mentioned that covered the issue with the province before the extension was granted, but wondering if there have been any other conversations with the province prior to this and what their response was like.
That's a technical question dealing with the documented record, and I'll just defer that for Jeremy to answer for us.
Yeah, so we just filed the judicial review in Queen's Bench at about 10 o'clock this morning, so there hasn't really been a lot of time subsequent to the filing to have any discussions with the province.
Sorry, just to clarify, like, prior to filing the judicial review, because I guess they had these, they've been issuing these permits for a while now, prior to this, it hasn't been able to deal with the province.
Right. So we alerted the province to our concerns about the lack of consultation, and then the province didn't say anything to us. What they did was they issued the authorizations, and then about a week after or more after they issued the authorizations, we just received a letter from the province indicating that they did in fact issue the authorization. So there hasn't been any subsequent discussions with the province. I'm going to go to number 6, Post Media. Is it Dave Baxter?
Yeah, it's okay. I don't have any questions.
Okay, and then I'm going to circle back to is it Richard Cloutier? Is he on the line?
I am. Good to talk to you, Chief. Good to talk to you. Thank you so very much. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Could you possibly comment, Chief, on the larger issue here? Because, in covering LP and the Manitoba government since 1994, and I think that we have seen over the years a lot of stops, a lot of starts when it comes to the management plan is concerned, and no real consultation with Indigenous groups. And some would describe over the years a whole lot of concerns. Is part of this also standing up and saying to the Manitoba government, the Louisiana Pacific, and Manitobans that enough is enough? We have seen progress made in British Columbia 20 and 30 years years ago, in Alberta 10 and 20 years ago, but it's now time that the Manitoba government and Louisiana Pacific, specifically in this case, start to acknowledge that we're not only at the table, but you must get.
Yeah, I think you rounded out very well, Richard, in your observation. I think that the broader issue is the province of Manitoba is about, I believe, 20 to 30 years behind when it comes to establishing policy and process and consultations around established legal precedent in Canadian law. You recall LP's license came into existence shortly after the Sparrow test was established in Canadian law. Since then, there's been a whole host of other jurisprudence that has informed how to establish best practices, and we've seen it in BC and other jurisdictions. It's not perfect by any means, but nonetheless, we're so far behind here that we have to find a starting point. And I believe that, and I hope that the fact that we have to go to the court to file a judicial review is an indication to the province that it's time to start establishing a standard that meets what the expectations are of informed people. We are Anishinaabe people. We are informed of our rights. We're informed of our laws that back us up under the Canadian Constitution. And we're demanding accountability in the process. So I think, like I said, I think you hit it square on the head there, Richard, with your observation about the challenges here.
Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Okay, so before I ask Chief Nepenak for his permission to close out this press conference, I'm just wondering if there's any other media that I've missed that might be on the line. Okay, hearing none. Chief, are we good?
I just want to make one final closing remark. Once again, I try to reiterate the point that our young people are demanding new standards in how we lead our community. They want to be proud. They want a strong sense of their identity. They want cultural continuity. They want to know that they're safe in accessing the hunting territories of our people. They want to know that they're safe in learning our language. They want to know that this is a new era for them to be proud of who they are. And it's our responsibility at the leadership table to make sure that we're making new pathways to realize that vision that the young people are sharing with us. I believe strongly that this is the right way to go. With all due respect to previous generations of leaders and elders in our community, this is the standard that we have to set now. And I want to commend everybody for stepping up and doing this the right way, including the council for being brave in the face of the challenge. So, Miigwech, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much to the Pine Creek members who've joined us on Facebook and to the media who have joined us on Teams. And if anyone has any other questions, reach out to me by email. We're committed to this discussion and we want to continue it. So thank you. Miigwech.